Alright, right now we're going to talk about your test that covers Chapter 1 in junior high math. Okay, we'll zoom in. On this test, there are 32 questions, so 1 through 32. Section 1 of the test covers a bar graph, and I ask you 4 or 5 questions about the bar graph, just basic questions of things, analyzing the bar graph, telling me how many, looking at something, maybe a category, how many, a number of something that falls in that category, just something simple like that. Another thing I would know from the section about the bar graph, besides just simply answering questions about it, would be that a histogram is a graph, it's a bar graph that deals with frequency tables. Very important to know that. Histogram is a bar graph that deals with frequency tables. Okay? That's section 1 of your test, of the 32 questions. Alright, section 2 deals with order of operations. Okay, order of operations. If you remember what we learned in class, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's going to help you out tremendously on this part. That stands for parentheses, exponent, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. And when you get down to the part that has the my dear, or the multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, if it's one that's a level, just go left to right. So starting with the problem, go left to right. And these problems are all expressions, so that means they're not going to have an equal sign, and that's fine. A good example would be the problem right here, and I've kind of color-coded it for you. It's the 3 times 7 plus 12 minus 7. So if I were working with that, if that was presented to me, the first thing I would want to start with would be the parentheses. I would start in the parentheses for please. 12 minus 7, I saw first, is equal to 5. So the 5 comes from 12 minus 7. Now my next line, I just carry down 3 times 7 plus 5. Look at that line. I don't have any parentheses. I don't have any exponents. Then I go to multiplication. So I'm going to evaluate that now. 3 times 7 is 21. So now I bring that down, and I have 21 plus 5. And so on line 3, as I'm looking at it, I don't have any parentheses, I don't have any exponents, no multiplication, no division, but I do have addition. And 21 plus 5, when I evaluate that, is 26, and that is my correct answer. I cannot further evaluate that any further than that. So when you get to that point, you're done. But I would know, especially that problem, that's a really good problem to know how to do. Alright, section 3. Section 3 deals with it's a matching section. It's only got about 4 questions. And the example that I give you would be on the left side of the matching, might say something like 6 times a number. That's a verbal expression that we need to know how to translate into, I guess you would say, a numerical expression, or numbers and variables. So anytime you see something like 6 times a number, that would look like 6x, because x is a variable that represents some number. We don't know what number yet, but we know that it's 6 times a number, and so 6x would fall into place there. Alright, so that is section 3. Now on to section 4. Section 4 is only made up of 2 questions, and the instructions say evaluate, remember, means to solve. Evaluate the expression given the value, let me zoom out a little bit, of the variable. The value of the variable. Okay? So evaluate means to solve. So if we had something along the lines of, say, I have 10x plus 8, comma, when x is equal to 2. So if you see something like that and you go, oh my gosh, what is this when x equals 2? That just simply means to go over here and where you see the x at, to plug that in. So that's 10 times 2. 10 times 2. And that's where my 2 goes. And then everything else stays the same, plus 8. So 10 times 2 plus 8. So it looks a lot like order of operations. So 10 times 2 is multiplication. I have 20 plus 8. And so my answer there is 28 is the correct answer to evaluate that only when x is 2. That is section 4 of your test. Now, moving on. Section 5, and I'm not going terribly too fast. Section 5, get it on there, make sure that you can see what I'm doing here. Move my camera. All right, section 5 is going to deal with evaluate the power. Evaluate the power. Okay, and if you recall, evaluate the power, we have a base and it has an exponent. Okay, the exponent does nothing more than tell us how many times to multiply the base times itself. So in a problem such as 3 to the 4th power, we can enter that in our calculator by saying 3, push the caret button, which is the button that looks like that, and then push 4 and let it evaluate us. Or it's just simply saying, hey, multiply 3 times itself 4 times. So on my calculator, I'm going to pull that up real quick. Let me zoom in for you. I'm going to say 3, let me give it a little light so you can see it better. Okay, I'm going to say 3, then I'm going to push my caret 4, and when I hit enter, I get 81. So 81 is the correct answer for 3 to the 4th power is equal to, do this in a different color, 81. So that one's pretty easy. You're going to have 3 of those on section 4. Moving on to evaluate the expression, section 5. We're going back to evaluate the expression. This is more, section 5 deals with order of operations again. We just introduced exponents. I'm just introducing exponents into this one. So there's 2 problems there. Still working order of operations, but remember now you have parentheses and the second step may have exponents in it. So know how to do that. That is section 5 is another order of operation. All follows the same path. I think you're pretty well for that. Section 6, we're almost to the end, says solve the equation using mental math. So mental math is what comes into play there. So for instance, if I give you something like x divided by 7 equals 9. So the way we want to read that is what number divided by 7 equals 9? What number divided by 7 equals 9? I know that number to be 63. 63 divided by 7 is 9. So that helps me understand that, knowing what I'm looking at. All right, so mental math on that, pretty easy section. Section 7, excuse me, it carries on the same thing with mental math, only this time I help you out a little bit and I make it multiple choice, or matching, excuse me, matching. So I ask you something like what we did up there, what number divided by 7 equals 9, and you just match that across to that. Shouldn't be that hard. 27 through 29, so we're on section 8. Section 8 is going to deal with, so section 7 was still mental math, but it was just matching. Section 8 is going to deal with perimeter and area. So you'll have the perimeter, area, and what we've dealt with in this class is rectangle and square. So you're going to have 3 questions about the perimeter and the rectangle, finding the perimeter and area of the rectangle and the square. And then last but not least, the final section of the test, which comes our word problems into play, will be section 9. And it says use the following information. So you'll have a word problem. It'll ask you to write a verbal model. So that's something we did in class together as a group, where we wrote a verbal model, and we'll talk about. Use that model to find cost and that kind of thing based on it, and then you'll have a question that deals with another word problem. So that's it. Just 9 sections, and that is your question. But the question that I really like, if I was going to throw a bonus in there, I would go back up to my top when I know histogram deals with a frequency table. Might be a really good question to look at when you're thinking of a bonus. So in a nutshell, you're looking at Chapter 1 test, 32 questions, and it covers bar graph, order of operations, some matching with some verbal expressions, evaluate the power, section 4, order of operations again, 2 sections on mental math. 1 is matching, perimeter area, and finding that of a rectangle and a square. And lastly, working with the verbal model or problem solving, and that comes from section 1.7 if you're a little bit confused on it. But I think everybody should be pretty prepared for it. Don't forget, you can also look at Khan Academy. Good luck, and hope you do well on your first test.